Lovely to have you with us once more on the More People podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Fitzmaurice, joined today by Kelham Cooke. Kelham, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be back.
Keen to talk about a whole range of things. I guess in the context of you being here, we can talk more locally than perhaps we often do in these podcasts around our nationwide recruitment in food and agriculture and commercial horticulture. For those who aren't familiar with who you are, can you give us a bit of a bio and background on who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been involved in local politics in Stamford now for probably the last 14 years. So I was elected when I was 20 to South Kesteem District Council. I then sort of rose through the ranks there until I became lead of the council between 2019 and 2023. Joined the county council in 2021. Obviously still a county councillor to date for Lincolnshire. And then obviously worked for our local members of parliament outside of that. And then following the 2023 elections, I now work in PR and comms on development projects. So we work on a whole host of things such as housing, renewable energy, solar, but also industrial and business facilities as well. Also for this civic year, the Mayor of Stamford.
Where are the chains?
I haven't brought the chains today. It's amazing actually how much they're actually worth. So they are very much locked away most of the time.
So digging a bit deeper into some of those roles and to explain them a bit further, I don't know to what extent, myself included, I really understand what the role of that local councillor actually is. So how do you describe some of the responsibilities?
Yeah, of course. So effectively, you've got 3 tiers of local government in Lincolnshire. So you've got the town and parish council, which looks at very local issues. You've then got the district, which looks after waste collection, housing, benefits. And then you've got the county council, which is effectively looking at the strategic things across a much broader area. So, particularly around your roads and highways, adult social care, education. Lincolnshire works really closely with obviously the local enterprise partnership as it was. So the food hub that was obviously built in South Holland, huge involvement with that as well as a county council. So they're sort of the 3 roles. And I suppose I've got experience on all 3 really.
So was it a vocation? You're a Stamford school guy. How did you get into this line of work?
I would love to tell you this story about, there was an issue that I really found that I wanted to support. It wasn't. It was basically, I'd sort of become involved in politics at school. And then it's the local elections. I was still at uni at the time. And I offered to deliver some leaflets. And then I was basically approached on the basis of, why don't you stand? It'll be really good for your CV and you won't get elected. And then probably about 6 weeks later, at the election count, I was then elected. And my first thought was, my God, what does the council even do? Because most people don't know. We all lead quite normal lives and you don't really take that much notice unless you need the help. So it started off delivering leaflets. And then I suppose I really just got more into it, to be honest. And at the same time, I had my Saturday job was working at Waitrose. So I did all sorts there, meat and fish counter, the deli, you do all sorts in the store. But yeah, and I sort of got more involved with it really.
I'm guessing you feel a deep connection to the geography as well. It's not an arbitrary geographical post. It's your hometown. So the passion must come through.
Yeah, because I think for me, I grew up here, my family live here, my friends are here. I went to school here. It is a very local message for me. But it means the community better, actually, in many respects. But in the last year being mayor and going out and about around the town, it's amazing how many places and people and community groups that I've never come across, but they do amazing work in the town. So it's been a real honour.
How different was the wider piece supporting our local MP?
So I worked for 2 MPs that covered this area, so Nick Bowles and Gareth Davies. They were both fantastic bosses and really helped me on my own professional journey, I guess, but completely different in terms of their interests and what they wanted to achieve. So really good experience. And to work down in Westminster was just incredible. I mean, amazing building, amazing sort of opportunity.
One of the reasons for getting you along onto this podcast is our shared passion for where we're based. We're in the heart of some of the produce industry, whether we're into deeper Lincolnshire or Cambridgeshire. What's your experience of some of the food and agriculture markets been like through the council?
I think it's a real mix. So quite a lot of friends, my parents, our family home is on the outskirts of Stamford, so we're in quite a rural village. A lot of my friends are farmers. I think a lot of friends, work in agriculture, and there is a huge affinity in this local area, particularly to that sort of agricultural background, but also I think it's the growing agri-tech sector as well. I think there's some really exciting opportunities that for Lincolnshire, I think they always refer to us as the food basket of England in many respects. And I think it's not uncommon why businesses then want to locate here. And I think for me, on a political basis, it's then trying to make this area the best place to live, work and visit, because you need to give people the opportunity to have a job, to buy a home, but also to have a life outside of work as well. And you look at across Lincolnshire and you've got a real mix of firms working in food and agriculture of varying sizes as well. And I think probably in the past, probably an issue you've had as well is actually finding business space appropriate for your growth as well. And I think one of the things that I always wanted to focus on was about providing that grow on space. Because I think, there's some fantastic businesses here already, but for them to grow, they're going to have to move out. I think actually we want to keep them here.
Hopefully what we're creating here is a space that is as good and as exciting a career as you might get in recruitment in London, for example. So there's no need necessarily to go through the school system or come back to your hometown after university and have to leave. You can come and work here. But how many progressive, exciting businesses we can attract to Stamford. I don't want to be the only business in Stamford that can attract those talents, that talented workforce, but it's a big challenge, I think, to be current and exciting enough for that demographic. And the war for talent that our clients experience, or the dearth of talent, is really pronounced. There's an aging workforce. Every exec dinner we run, of which you've been to one and heard some of the moans and groans from that client base. Shortage of talent. Where's the next generation coming from? How do we attract young people into the sector are of paramount importance. So when you take places like what's going on in Holbeach, it plays its part. And the more opportunities we've got to get school leavers into the food industry, or the university graduates who maybe we're doing food or agriculture who are pipelined into the sector, that's great. We're going to get those people probably in the sector anyway. But if we can attract other people who are doing more generic, arbitrary business degrees or Spanish degrees or maths degrees or whatever, or maybe they haven't gone down the degree route, maybe they're doing apprenticeships. But I think all of these different institutions play a massive part in pulling a greater number of people into the sector. It's a brilliant sector to work in, not just recruitment, I mean, the food and ag industry, but it's also a really unsung hero. People go to the supermarkets, they buy their potatoes, they eat an apple. They don't give much thought to how that supply chain put it on the shelf consistently throughout the year. It goes in the basket, you eat it.
No, it's almost one of those things you just expect it. So then when there is a shortage of supply, it's almost like mass panic, because it's almost like, well, I don't understand, why is it not there? Because we've all become accustomed to you going to the supermarket and you can generally get whatever you want throughout the year. What would you say the biggest challenges are to your sector though at the minute? What could I, as somebody in local government, do to help and assist, I guess?
That's a really good question. I feel under pressure now to give you a really good answer on behalf of all the clients and candidates. I think driving the awareness of what goes on in that space is really important. The man on the street perceives foods to be expensive. And if you look relative to the US or mainland Europe, a lot of the stuff that we eat is not expensive at all. And the margins that the growers and producers make are so small because of this price point being so low. But if that low price point is perceived as being expensive, then how do you deal with that perception and reality? But so much work goes into those products, whether it's a potato or an apple or a ready meal or a sandwich. They're incredibly cheap and complicated and incredibly safe, nutritionally balanced. The trust we put in our food is so high, we take it for granted there even was any trust. You don't think about it, you just eat it. So I think a wider piece of education to, all the way through to school kids to understand where this food came from and appreciate what went into it, and the fact that some of the roles that went into it are really quite exciting. This podcast is an example of that, I think, to showcase the breadth of what goes on and to really shine a light on how exciting some of the roles are. And you can earn good money in it as well. It's not It's not if all else fails at school, go and work in the food industry. There's some brilliant careers. Heightening that awareness, I think, would be my answer to trying to drive the average intelligence, the average food intelligence, the average industry ag intelligence across the board would, I think would trickle through and make a big difference.
I think it's one of those things, because you look at it in terms of, so we've spoken about my role as a local councillor and being here in Stamford, but then actually, you're elected to represent a much broader area, and part of that is the wider county of Lincolnshire, and there's, a huge scope of opportunity there, and actually, I suppose for any of your clients and businesses and customers, we want them to invest and create those jobs, because ultimately we should be there to support the private sector to enable them to grow, because the public sector is not going to grow the economy, it's the private sector. So whatever we can do to assist that's always been my mantra.
Well, it's a core product. Everybody eats, irrespective of how buoyant or not the market might be. In terms of economy, people are eating food every single day. So it's such a high priority product.
But you are right in terms of cost, though. I think there is actually an education piece to do with like members of the public, because in reality, when you travel abroad and you go on holiday and you see what people are paying for food abroad, it is extortionately high in comparison to what we pay here.
Yeah.
And then when you work out what we're paying in a supermarket, then what the actual producer earns from that product, at some point, something's got to change. And I know a lot of supermarkets have been very conscious about that, and also, providing support to, the growers and the farmers. But actually, there is an education piece to do with the price of food in this country.
Yeah. And if we don't, there's a chance that some of those growers may just say, forget it. It's not worth it. And then there won't be any product, and we won't be a self-sufficient island as much as possible for those homegrown products.
Yeah. And it's sort of, if I reflect in terms of my day job now, working in sort of development comms, some of our customers or clients are farmers, and we are supporting them with sometimes solar farm applications on their farms, simply to subsidise their income because of the value in which they're currently getting off of the land, which is a whole different argument, I know, and actually does need rebalancing. But actually, it's making their farming more sustainable in some ways. It's a real challenge at the minute.
Well, let's hope you carry on that path, and the righteousness of fixing these problems, you can play your part, and it'll be great to see what happens.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Carl.